Well, today we are at a new winery, and if you're familiar with wineries in the Placer County region, that's what we've been working on. And today we took an exciting detour down south. And with me today is Emily Valdez and, of course, Rachel.
Yep, and we have Michelle with WildflowerDaydreams.
And Emily is with eXp Realty. She is a winery expert. And so we had this opportunity come on, and so we kind of took a detour from the Placer County Wine Trail. Emily, tell us where we're at.
We're at Casino Mine Ranch in Plymouth, California. This is in the Shenandoah Valley, one of the most beautiful regions in Amador County. And this is one of my favorite wineries because, number one, the level of service is like nothing else that you get at a lot of the other wineries locally. And you're gonna feel a little bit different, just the energy is different. We're smaller scale wineries in the area. And so with that, you just get amazing things like customer service and charcuterie boards that you don't even wanna eat. They're so beautiful.
Oh my goodness. And the episodes 3 and 4, I think it was, we brought our own charcuterie in, and this is such an upgrade from that.
Yeah, so. I'm feeling quite spoiled right now.
Yes.
This is really lovely.
Do. One of the things that we've mentioned several times, a theme on our podcast, is that we are so blessed to get to travel to beautiful places and meet beautiful people and eat beautiful food. It's gorgeous.
And Emily, I just have to say thank you for thinking of this place because this is absolutely amazing. There's the grounds, the property, and yeah, this is lovely.
You know, it is amazing that we're in Placer County and we have our own set of wineries up there and some of the nicest ones we go to. And then down here, this is, for those that aren't familiar with the area, we're probably about 30 minutes south of what we would call Sacramento. And this is a whole new region of wineries. And I know that the soils are better down here for some types of wine. Tell us a little about that. I know that you've got some experience in that area.
Right. So the coolest thing about this region is that it's very similar to a Mediterranean region. So when you think Mediterranean, you think Tuscany, and we have all of that here. So this is actually one of the most popular appellations of places to grow grapes. You know, initially people came out here for the gold rush, and then they figured out shortly after that the real gold is in the soil here. People from all over the world come here to visit, to taste the wines. A lot of Napa growers actually they buy their fruit from here. So just adds just to the mix of El Dorado County, Amador County. What makes us so special is that we have a really special region that is very similar to regions you would think of like in Europe.
And you can really, like just the drive in, it was amazing. Just the views and the feeling that you get when you're driving through this. Wouldn't you say, Michelle?
Yeah, it's so beautiful driving in. It was only about an hour from Roseville for me, and just the drive, it's so peaceful.
Yeah,
so nice.
Yeah.
Well, you must not have had me driving because we were hitting hairpin turns.
Yeah, it was less peaceful.
Peaceful is not the word that
still
needs to be used. Well, speaking of things that aren't peaceful, let's jump right into the conversation. As you know, if you've been following us very long, you know that we talk about wine. We like wine, so that's why we come have wine with friends,
yes.
And that's kind of the gist behind it. However, what we're really talking about, speaking of wine.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Thank you. Good job.
Yes, and what are we drinking today?
Oh, this is one of my favorite. You know me, I love red wine. This has me absolutely humbled. It's their Grenache Blanc. It's a super easy sipper. You want to have this nice and chilled by the pool or whatever, making dinner with your pasta dishes, your fish dishes, or just stand alone.
Yeah.
It's
like
delicious. Yes.
I'm not a big white fan, and I really enjoy this as well. So,
yeah.
All right. So, as I was saying before, we forgot about the wine for a second, so we had to come back to the wine. We're really about drinking wine is just something that we do. That's just the way we have fun. That's not really what the show's about. We're really here to talk about real estate, and you cannot talk about real estate without talking about community.
And small business.
And small business and community is really why we talk. We have real estate, but that's just what we sit the small business and community on. And it's all about the people that live on the real estate. And so tell us a little about small business.
Well, I think that the foundation is between, real estate and realtors and community is that entrepreneurship, because that's really what brings that value to the community.
Absolutely.
And it really is what steps up the community to improves the quality of life. And having those small businesses who not only work in those areas and have their businesses in those areas, but often they also live in those areas. And so I think that there's just such value of having people at the table from those different perspectives to talk about entrepreneurship, real estate, and business.
You know, it's kind of interesting is I think about land, and you can have land that is a dirt lot that has nothing on it and really no potential, and then you have land that has beautiful vines coming out of it that provides fruit and just is a totally different setup. And so it's kind of interesting. The same thing is true with business. You can have just corporate behemoths. It's still land, but it's corporate land, and it's not done the same way. So I'd love to get in a little bit of your backstory, Michelle. What made you say, okay, I'm not going to go the corporate route? You could have worked for Neiman Marcus or something like that and worked in a mall and done retail sales, but you decided to do it completely different and open your own shop. That is, I guess for lack of a better word, ballsy.
Well, yeah, I have done the corporate behemoth thing, and I think, like what you said, it goes a long way to show that small business is completely different. So for me, I grew up worked in retail for about 10 years, and since high school through college, I worked a lot of retail jobs, worked at Nordstrom, Macy's, everything you can think of, and I went to school for apparel merchandising. So when I graduated, I actually did go the corporate route. I was working at a company that provided product development to Target, and then I also did product development for Old Navy. So I went the corporate route. I thought, this is what I want. And when I got there, I realized I was just not super happy with my job. It was very stressful, but a type of stress that was just not sustainable. And at that point, I really knew I wanted to start a business. And being from Sacramento, I thought, that would be a great place to move back to Sacramento, the Roseville area, to start my business. So actually, those corporate jobs are what pushed me to start my business and move back to where I was from, which is the Sacramento, Roseville area.
So I'm not real familiar with product development. Is that kind of like what you do now as a business owner? Is that sourcing product? Because I know those companies don't necessarily make their own product that you talked about. Were you a buyer for them, basically?
So product development is basically working with the manufacturers to produce the product.
Okay.
So I was basically negotiating costs, working with the factories to keep them on deadlines, and then working with their buyers to make sure we were hitting the right price point.
So you had to really stay in tune with what was in season, what was trendy, and does that do the same thing at your store now? You're a perpetual buyer now.
Yeah, so it definitely comes in handy. I mean, for me, looking at quality is super important, and that's something I had a lot of experience with in product development because I would be approving quality on things. And definitely keeping margins and looking at the numbers side of the business. I think that's something that a lot of people, if they just come in and say, hey, I want to start a boutique, they don't necessarily think about the margins you need to maintain a healthy business.
It sounds like that really that was the foundation, kind of gave you those tools to, launch and create your own successful business. That's really cool.
Yeah.
And I think that as entrepreneurs, a part of that journey is discovering what we don't like and entering into different areas and getting the tools and pulling out what works, but then taking those tools and then creating your own business so that you can, put your thumbprint in the community.
Exactly.
Emily, tell us a little bit about what made you join into this. I know your background is pretty eclectic, I guess I would say. What made you decide that being a real estate agent was what you wanted to do full time? There's a lot of people that play at it, they get on the edges of it, and I know that's not you. I mean, you're really gung-ho, all into it, top producer for the area, and tell me a little bit about what drove you into that.
Thank you for that. So yeah, this is my 10th year in real estate, and I think real estate is a lot like the winery industry. It's a service industry. And so I just happened to grow up in a household where I was taught you serve others before you serve yourself. And it's the same thing in real estate. So you put yourself out there, you get in uncomfortable situations because you're not only doing what's right for someone else, you're doing what you know is right for your business. And so real estate is kind of natural for me because it's just like taking care of someone. So, and that's what I like to do. I like to take care of people. You come to my house, you're going to be taken care of.
Oh man,
you need a winery in a pinch. Like I got you covered.
Like, I got you. And I love how there's so much truth in that we are in a position of service, right? Like you're serving your community, we serve as realtors, we serve our community. And not only that, but like the support, right? I love that at this table, the support and community that we both have together, I think is such an important quality.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So you've sold a lot of real estate in the local area. I guess I'd start right off with the wineries. You've sold wineries, And that's something
I
that
didn't
most
know that.
agents, I mean, there's probably, in Placer County, there's probably about 4,000 agents or so that are registered. I know if you throw in all the agents in the area, you're probably about 14,000 agents. And I bet not more than 14 of them have ever sold a winery.
I think it's less than that. Yeah, there's only a handful. And that was a big step out of my comfort zone. I've always specialized in residential real estate. It's what I know. But I also love wineries.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm like, wait a second, I could take two things I love and put them together. And it's very different. It's very challenging, but it's rewarding in a way that's completely different than supporting someone in a more emotional, home purchased
Right.
type sale. So it kind of takes the emotion out. It's all business. It's still fun. It's still about relationships,
Yeah.
but it's a little bit more serious and calculated.
Well, and I would imagine, just the learning curve and that experience, and then the trust that business owner has in you. And that's a lot of pressure as real estate agents, as business owners. There's a lot of pressure on our shoulders because you have an opportunity to help people, but there's also a lot of risk involved. And so knowing that
there is a lot of risk. Yeah, and there's a lot of reward with that. And I am still learning. I'm always learning and evolving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you might notice that I've had my phone out, and I don't want to be the typical cliche of a real estate agent with their phone out, but I'm doing it because there were some notes there. California has 4,800 wineries, and they make up 43% of the nation's wineries. And so that's a big deal. The average winery is 82 acres, and 1 acre can hold about 5,500 vines, and each vine produces about 10 bottles of wine. So there's my background on, that's all I know about selling wineries. But I found that really interesting, because when you're selling a winery, you're really doing both. You're selling, and oftentimes they have multiple houses on the property. Many of these properties go back many years. They had vineyard workers who lived on the land. So you'd have usually 2 or 3 worker cottages or worker housing, and then you'd also have usually a glamorous house, and so you're going to have a real combination of that. And then you also have this income component. Now, for me, I specialize in income housing, multiple units, things like that, people that are investing in properties. And so that's always a factor that I have to bring into it. It's not just about the square footage. It's not just about the house.
You're right.
It's about all this other stuff that you put in it. And I think that's where your specialty, that's where it really requires you to have a specialist.
Yeah, so it's kind of a mix of playing as if you're in viticulture, because you need to know your fruits. You need to know what grows better in what region, what sells better in what region, how many acres are producing, how many case goods, and you need to factor those type of things into inventory, which has nothing to do with real estate. So there's a business aspect of it, profits, what comes from the land. There's a real estate aspect, what's affixed to the land, like a home. Typically there's a rental income on the property, or there's a management company that often either lives on site or comes and goes off site. You want to keep those contracts going. Sometimes the owners stay on for a couple of years. Throughout the next couple of harvests, those are things to be negotiated in a winery transaction. So there's a lot of factors that are different and always, evolving.
That you have to kind of explore and discover as you go.
Yeah, exactly.
So Michelle, when we met with JP, she had talked about, a lot of the businesses that she works with are pop-up businesses that eventually evolve into, the goal is brick and mortar. Did you go through that pop-up process, and what did that look like for you?
Yeah, so for me, I started my business in March 2021, so it's been about 2.5 years now. And I have an online store, and then I also do pop-ups. And even with my brick and mortar, which is in Rockland, I still do pop-ups on the weekends just because it's such a great way to get with the community, to showcase your products, and it's a way that I'm able to do that without, it's similar to digital marketing, but people are able to see it in person and touch the fabrics and meet me and see the customer service. So I still love doing pop-ups. They're a great revenue source for me.
Well, I think all of you ladies are under 50. Well, safe to say that. That's
right.
all we'll do. We'll just leave that alone right there. All of you ladies are under 50. So can you describe to me, what is a pop-up?
Yes, a pop-up, many people are familiar with maybe craft fairs or makers fairs. Those have kind of evolved to not just have people who are hand making their products, but also other small businesses.
Okay.
So, for example, one of the largest pop-ups that I do is the Midtown Farmers Market in Sacramento. So that has about 200 different small businesses. It, of course, has produce, but also handmade goods, eco-friendly businesses. So, and it takes about 4 or 5 blocks of the city, and that's every Saturday.
Wow,
So every Saturday, and where would they find that?
So that's on 20th and K Street in
Okay.
Midtown Sacramento.
And are you generally do your pop-ups on at that time, or is that a consistent
Yep.
market for you?
I'm there every Saturday.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah.
She's like us.
Yeah.
She works on the weekends.
I
It's
do.
like
Right.
a Tuesday.
But
Tuesday's my day off.
yeah, right. But that's entrepreneurship,
Yeah.
right? Like and
Yes.
owning your own business and just showing up and being there is
Yeah, you got to have that hustle.
nights and weekends.
Mhm.
Yeah. You really do have to have that hustle.
You do. I've
Yeah.
been in an interviewing process. My property management company, we've got 160 doors now. And so we're at the point where I've got to hire more people. And as I'm going through this interview process, it is just amazing how many people you talk to that simply don't have the hustle. It's just not there. They don't even know how to spell the word. And so it's just amazing. When I'm around real estate agents and entrepreneurs, you guys all have the hustles, right?
Yeah.
It's just amazing that you see that. Earlier, Emily, you said something that kind of struck me. It reminded me of a quote. I don't know if I'll get it right, but it basically says, your degree of success is directly related to how comfortable you are with being uncomfortable.
True.
And so I think that's really going back to that idea of, you've got to get used to being uncomfortable. What's something in your business now, and I think I know part of the answer to this, we might be doing it right now, but what is something in your business now that just makes you uncomfortable, that you're not really comfortable with, but it is part of your business?
Okay, well, yeah, we are doing it right now.
Putting yourself out there as an expert is
Didn't know I
uncomfortable.
was doing this today. So, which it gave me no time to bail. So,
Right.
video. I mean, we're in a very tech savvy, instant gratification, social media world where people want content, they want it now, and they want it constantly. And it's hard. That's a full-time job as it is. I already devote 40 to 60 hours a week to my business. Like, how am I going to fit in time for things like that? I love people, and I'm better one-on-one, but put
I
a
think
camera in front of me, and I'm like, I don't know what to do with my hands.
A part
Well,
of that.
you guys could eat with your hands. I have noticed that none of you beautiful women have taken a bite of food on
It's
camera.
too pretty.
So I want to touch base back on that. I think a part of that is like the vulnerability. How challenging has it been for you? Because I know that you've been in the media and I've seen the work that you've done with your business. Has that been challenging, being in front of the camera and exploring this other part of entrepreneurship that I think that
Exposure.
Historically it hasn't been a part of that process, but now that people want to see behind the scenes, they want to see what entrepreneurs are doing because it's interesting. So how did you feel kind of navigating those new territories?
For me, when I was in high school, I used to be a lead singer in a band, so that actually helped a lot. So for me, I don't really get that nervous with public speaking and being in front of cameras anymore. It's honestly more awkward, like being by myself,
Yeah.
And that's where I think what you're saying is sometimes when you have to create content as a business owner, sometimes I'm like, well, I don't know what to do with the camera like right in front of my face. But in that instance, it's like just seeing what other people are doing in our industry. I follow quite a few realtors and I look at like what they're doing on social media or other small business owners or boutique owners. And I think it's just once you do it, it's like repetition, once you do it a couple times, you're like, it's not that big of a deal. Like, you just do it, and it's like anything else. You practice it, you get more comfortable. And even when you said just making time for creating content, I've noticed some of the most addictive videos people like to watch is just the behind the scenes everyday thing.
Yeah.
You would think, why would you film that? But
why would you film
Yeah.
People-
Well, it's authentic.
yeah.
People like authenticity.
Yeah.
they want to see your day. They want to
Yeah.
see you get up and make coffee and you have no makeup on. I mean, as much as we don't love it, that's what they want to
But
see.
I find myself-
You're right.
And I do find myself like watching, you're scrolling through it and you're like, oh, what is she cutting there on that cutting board?
Yeah.
And then, now she's going to make some coffee. That's really interesting.
I can't
don't know
imagine
why.
that. There's
That's-
the difference there.
yeah.
I don't get
You don't-
stopped by the same video. Making coffee wouldn't stop
Yeah,
me. Thanks
yeah,
anyway.
well,
but, yeah.
I-
I think it does. That's one of the beautiful things, though, is that you're somebody's favorite flavor.
Yeah.
I think that we get lost on that. And I think sometimes it's probably more challenging for women. And believe it or not, it's probably more challenging for women who are more attractive than it is for women who aren't. I think because that image gets there. But I think that everyone is somebody's more favorite flavor. And I think that's what we all forget. I forget that to my wife, she likes the way I am, right? She'd like me to
Thank
lose some weight.
goodness.
She'd like me to lose some weight, but to her, I'm the favorite flavor, right? And so part of that is looks, part of it's not. But I think to everybody out there, you've got somebody that's looking at you and going, man, I wish I could do something just a little bit more like what she's doing. Or I wish I could do something just a little bit more like running my own business. Or watching her has given me the strength to step out and do this. And I think that's a message we can all relate to. Right?
Yeah, I think authenticity is the most important part, and it's also about your target market. For me, I sell women's clothing. I mean, men aren't typically my target market.
There you go.
Yeah.
Where then you think of like other millennials, they love seeing like what is an average entrepreneur doing. And even though like I may not be selling product, I'll get more engagement on that video just because they can relate to you. You know, they might think, oh, well, we all get up and make our coffee in the morning. We're all relatable. So I think that's just something to keep in mind, because at the end of the day, it's not all about sales and glamour on Instagram. Like for you guys, it's finding clients. For me, it's finding customers, and they just want to feel spoken to and related to.
Yeah.
So let's get that out of the way right now, just for those that are listening, and you might have to move on to something else. If someone wanted to reach either one of you, what's the best way for them to do it?
Call my cell phone.
And that is,
530-409-0045.
oh, she turned it into a song. Is that a little catchy rhyme?
Yes,
530-409.
409-0045. I
0045.
answer my phone
You answer
every
your
day.
phone? Really? You answer your phone? It doesn't go to...
I do. I actually
awesome,
answer
awesome.
my phone.
You know, if you're looking for a real estate agent, that's like the #1 requirement, in my opinion.
And I
Is you
return
want
phone
one that
calls.
answers your phone and returns calls. And for your business, Michelle, what's the best way? Do they just come by, or do you have a website?
Yeah, so you can find me on WildflowerDaydreams.com. It has my address there in Rockland, all of my store events and pop-up events, or on Instagram at Shop Wildflower Daydreams.
All right, thank you. And I like to do that in the middle, because when I do it at the end, everybody's like, oh, we're done. And so I like to just throw that out there.
Yeah. And what is the address of your shop in Rockland?
Yeah, so I'm at 6015 Pacific Street, Unit 12 in Rockland, and I'm right on the corner between Sunset and Pacific. So kitty corner from Moxa Brewing, if you guys know where that is.
I don't know where that is.
Yeah.
Beers and shopping sounds
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, this year we're doing wine. Next year we'll be doing beer.
There you go.
So this is about real estate and small business. So let me take you back a little ways. Tell me about the first house you ever owned. If you haven't owned to own, that's okay. But tell me about the first house you ever owned. Emily?
The first house I ever owned was in St. Louis, Missouri, which is where my country bumpkin hubby is from. I had to go find me a Midwest boy. Thank goodness we're back in Cali now. But so he was 20 at the time, and it was the time, 2005, if you remember, you could actually buy a home without any verified income.
Wow, 2005. Those
So
were the days.
he never had a credit card, and I tried to take him to like Sears, and I'm like, you need credit so we can like buy a house. He couldn't get a credit card, and the lender said, well, how about a cell phone? Do you have a cell phone? And it was $15 a month. We sent that to the lender. We got pre-approved.
Those were the days.
So that was our first home. It was $160,000, and I thought, man, I hope this works out, because we're going to be broke. We were so excited and so nervous, and hired a realtor, and it really was a good experience. It was fun. We brought the family in. It was good until it wasn't good. And this is actually a big part of the reason why I got into real estate. When the second we moved in the house, we realized every time we ran the shower, it would flood the kitchen.
Nice.
And I'm like, what in the world? And typical buyer, we don't read anything. We're so excited, and we're just kind of trusting the process.
Yeah, and trusting the real estate agent.
Trusting our agent, and I
In their
I
defense,
loved
the
her.
agent probably never took a shower.
She did. But we did all our inspections. It was just one of those things where
Right.
you had to be in the shower for 20 minutes. Then the water would start seeping out. So I go to our disclosures, normal process, look at the plumbing section. The entire section is left blank.
Wow.
So it wasn't not addressed, or the seller didn't, lie about anything. It wasn't even filled out. And our agent let us sign it.
Yeah.
Incomplete.
Wow.
I made a pact that day, and I had already been thinking about real estate at that time in my life, and I had a very influential broker who ended up taking me on and mentoring me for my first 6 years in real estate. And that was one of the biggest things is, make sure you're really helping people. Like, read the documents with them, sit down with them.
Don't skim through them.
Don't skim through. Guide them. There's too much excitement and emotion, you know, and then we paid the price in the end because we were so excited, and it turned out to be kind of horrific, and it cost us a lot of money that we didn't have. I never wanted a client of mine to ever experience anything
Well, you can
like
feel
that.
the frustration and emotion still coming off of you 20 years, many years from then. How about you, your first house?
So I'm still living in our first home.
Oh, that's
Wow.
cool. I love that. That's
We
great.
bought in
Wonderful.
Roseville in 2019, which
Okay.
was great because we didn't have a crystal ball, and it was a great time to buy.
Yeah. What did you get your interest rate at?
It's 3.85.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so for first-time home buyers,
Yeah.
my husband's a teacher, so we were able to get some help with that as well. And, you know, I think we're at the
Wonderful.
point, you know, we've got a couple more years, but, you know, we've been fixing it up. You know, we redid one bathroom, got one more to go, and just putting in some sweat equity. But just with, you know, the couple years that have gone by with COVID, we've already made a little profit on it already.
That's
so.
good.
And you know what I tell my clients, like, you just have to step in the game. Like, you have to just make that first leap.
Yeah.
And it's scary and it's tough, but the equity and the value that you gain through that. And I think that people a lot of times make decisions from a base of fear, but when we use these opportunities to educate them and to, you know, walk them through that process, hopefully they trust you enough to make that leap, because if you wait, the longer you wait, the more difficult it's going to be, because the market should just, you know, I know we go through our ups and downs, but it's, you know, just going to increase.
I think
in
that's
value.
one of the, I study the market quite a bit, and I think that's one of the things that today's consumer is a little bit unaware of, is how much the market is still rising, right? And so they look at it and they say, oh, the interest rates have slowed everything down. And yes, it did slow things down, but it's still going up. You know, we had some decrease in this area in the last part of 22, but this first, all through 23, it's still been rising. And so year over year, we're looking at positive numbers. And I think that continued improvement that you're doing to the house, you know, putting more work into it, that's one of the benefits that you get when you're not a renter, you own your house. Everything you do to it is making a value go up, at the same time that the lever of the market is over here lifting your pricing as well. So I think that's a really big deal. I always love hearing about people's first house. And so I think that's awesome.
I just read a really cool quote that interest rate on a rental is 100%.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
100%. That's what
Right.
it is. Our interest rate on our first house was 7%. I was so excited. I was like, we got 7. It was like 7.25 like the month before, and
Right.
it went down to 7. We were so excited.
Which is pretty amazing, because that's where it's at right now.
Yeah.
I mean, basically, you're at 7.25, and that's what it was like a week ago, and now it's back down to 7. And you'll see that fluctuate, but I think that gets lost in the idea that you're paying 100% interest. You're basically paying someone else's mortgage.
Right.
You know, I
100%.
think that gets lost. Well, when you do get ready to sell, let me go ahead and do a shameless plug. Rachel would be glad to help you with that. And if you're out in Emily's domain, which is, you're probably more in Rachel's domain. So if you're out in Emily's domain, and where would you say your home turf is? Placerville,
I'm-
Eldorado Hills?
Yeah, I'm all along Highway 50 corridor, anywhere from South Lake Tahoe to West Sac on the Highway 50 stretch. That's my turf.
That's your
Yeah.
jam.
Yeah, right.
And you're probably the opposite, right on 80, right?
Well, yes, and I'm Placer County 65,
Yep.
80, so yeah.
And I'm probably more investment at this point, and I love all real estate, but that's probably the part that I focus on more now. So.
Yeah.
Tell us, you mentioned it a little bit earlier, you talked about an influential broker. Sorry about that, learning to speak English. And you said that they really took you under the wing, and so I'll come back to that in just a moment. Do you have anybody that in your industry that served as a mentor for you, or that you were able to look at them and talk with them and help you launch?
Yeah, for me, not exactly a mentor in having a small business, but as I was interning in college, I had lots of influential women who were like my supervisors or managers when I was interning in the corporate world, and I had watched some of them go out on their own and do their own thing and pursue what was most passionate to them. And I remember one woman in particular, she had left the corporate grind and she moved to Montana and was snowboarding and was going to start her own business. And I just remember thinking, that sounds amazing. But at that point, I was about 6 months from graduating. It's like, I have student loans, I've had this plan. And then, it took about 2 years after that, I realized there was a reason why that stuck out in my head of that was such a cool thing that she was doing. Because for me, it's, if I'm going to work 60 hours a week, I want it to be for building my own empire, not someone else's.
Absolutely.
Kind of like renting versus owning, right?
Yeah,
you know?
absolutely.
I think
Yeah.
we should toast
Yes.
to that because
Cheers to
I can't
that.
seem to get you guys to drink. Building your own empire. Here's to building your own empire.
Yeah.
And for her to take that leap, right, and pave the path to give you that vision, and I think as entrepreneurs, women, like, it's important for us to follow our dreams and to be vulnerable and to take those steps that
Absolutely.
are sometimes uncomfortable, but the strength that comes from it. And when we see other people be strong, it gives us the motivation to do so as well.
Exactly.
What I love about your story, Michelle, is that those women didn't even know they were being your mentors.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that so often we're being a mentor to someone and we don't even know it. So tell us about your broker that was influential. In what way did that give you strength to make your choices?
So my first broker was Laura Lee Green, who is a longtime broker in the area, practically a sister of mine. As I said, I grew up in a very open household, and I mean, she was basically like my fourth sister. I have 3 sisters, and she, along with Beverly Reed and Cindy Hatala, taught me 3 things that I hold very dear. Number 1, do not get into real estate for the money. Don't do it for the money. Do what you say you're going to do. So if you tell someone you're going to do something, you better do it. Keep your word. And number 3, that you can be successful and beat out competition in this business with being a very ethical and honest person.
I love that.
Those are great lessons.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I really enjoyed our time, and I learned a lot about the both of you, and I think that you guys are both very strong women, very strong entrepreneurs, and you're doing great things in your community. So how fortunate we are to spend time with strong people.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think it's amazing, these stories that we hear each week, and they're there, they just don't get told that often.
Yeah.
And so, if you like this kind of content, follow us and give us some questions. If you have questions that you would like to ask guests, I would love to hear from you as well and get those questions worked into our guests as we come. So this has been lovely. Now we're going to, I've learned now that the women don't eat while they're on camera, but as soon as this camera turns off, they will devour this plate.
Yeah, we got to dig in. No, I've been looking
Bye.
at it.
Bye.
Bye. Okay, the first thing you have to try is
The honeycomb.
Oh my God.
and it's sticky and gooey, but just get messy.
I love how you use the